Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. Basketball Rewind. I'm joined by Beyond. I'm joined by Coach. I'm joined by Trey. Pull up Trey. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I had a lot of fun last summer here, so I came to bother you guys again.
Absolutely. You are always welcome to come back. I'm sure we will have more conversations. I also hope to have more conversations with Samson, although I know that that will probably happen as well. Really quickly, couple things since have happened since we last talked. Dennis Schroeder took home the gold. Canada took home the bronze. Any really quick, fast thoughts on the tournament? And I guess I'll also ask you because I have a fan on the channel that keeps bothering me about RJ. Uh, Thoughts on RJ Barrett?
My thoughts on RJ haven't really changed. Like
Okay.
in order for him to take a leap, he has to improve as a shot maker. But I think in this setting where he is allowed to be more physical, you saw where he would be able to win as a creator. So ideally, in a perfect world, like he's on this Olympic team, but he's probably not a starter on the team.
Oh man, I'm gonna get killed now. I got killed for that last time, but yeah, okay, fair
This
enough,
might
fair
be the
enough.
last time this episode he and I are on the same page in this case here.
Jeez, RJ's getting killed again. You, I'm guessing, don't have any problems with Wiggins coming on the team.
Man,
Okay,
we're at a point where it's not a Make a Wish Foundation. The best players gotta come.
Yes.
yes.
Corey Joseph, I love you. Thank you for your contributions to this country, but I cannot see you play another game for this country.
Hey,
Please.
if he wants to be a coach, he's welcome to do that.
Philip Scrub, I love the CIF. Great job. I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, I agree because it's like the Olympics only come, especially the Summer Olympics. Each Olympic only comes around 8 years, so if you have to strike while the iron's hot. Okay, so with that being said, people, I don't think that this is going to be a FIBA episode. Sorry, people. We will get to one more FIBA episode before the Raptors start the season. But I have another question before we start. The presser hasn't started yet, but have you heard any rumblings about the lawsuit?
Nothing, but I'm just happy that we're trying all mechanisms to win again.
Okay, that's good. Perfect. I like it. Okay, so today we brought Trey back here to finish the OG conversation because OG was a hot button topic. Brian Windhurst recently said that Toronto better be careful about OG because it may not end out the way that people would like it to end up. I know that recently, as soon as I think Fred left, OG said that he wants more on ball touches and whatnot. So let's get into it. There's a few things that I want to tackle in this conversation. It's mainly going to be you and Beyond. I might chime in here, Coach might chime in there, but it's mainly going to be you guys. But the first question is probably going to be do you see OG as a core piece of the Raptors moving forward? And whoever wants to start can start.
I'll start. If he wants to stay, I would gladly have him. He's a player that fits both scenarios of what the Raptors want to do. If they want to build around Scotty, they have someone that can defend, hit shots, and space out for him. If they want to invest in the Pascal Siakam timeline, they have someone that can offer all the keys as a 3-and-D player that also has the ability to put the ball on the floor. You saw like how Aaron Gordon took the Denver Nuggets from a really good team to when they acquired him and his like unique skill set to over top to one of the best teams in the league, and they won a title. I think OG offers a lot of those same things, and in most cases, at a higher tier. If you're trying to contend, this is the exact type of player you'd want on your team.
Well, I am. Let me preface this, folks, for all the fans at home in this case here. Why I say this, I think OG Anunoby is a very good player in this league. I think OG Anunoby is a starter in this league. I think OG Anunoby is probably good from 15, maybe at best ceiling 19, maybe a good year, maybe 20 points a game. I will put all that on the table and say so. Obviously, defensively, nothing to question. But the question I'm bringing to this is the concern I have is you mentioned like should he be a core piece, and I don't think his value in this case is enough to be considering him a core piece. Now, I find it interesting that Trey mentioned in this case here, our friend out in Denver, Mr. Gordon, who ironically had a similar role in Orlando, where he was in this case used in a role that was not really suited for him. He was like a first or second option in Orlando. Orlando should not have had him in that position. He went to Denver. He knows his role now. He plays as that. Question I would have to ask for OG fans, and Trey in this case here, is that if you were to sign back OG, do you think OG would do the things that you described? Because a 3-and-D guy is not, I don't believe, is how OG Anunoby views himself.
He's better than yeah.
Yes, that to me is the problem, because if he's a guy that thinks of himself more than a 3-and-D guy, that creates issues of how you try to build this team. Second part is, too, the defensive part, which is fantastic, but I think we've overrated defense. And what I mean by this is the value that a great defensive player gives you is not as great as the value of a great offensive player. It's just not. You can scheme that guy out in a playoff series in a heartbeat, just like that. So all the great defense in the perimeter you have there, you just get the right pick and roll, and he's off that dude. Big deal. Whoop-de-doo. And you get the weakest defender you have on the court. So I would prefer to have two guys that are average to slightly above average defenders than having one spectacular defender. If I could spread that defensive prowess around the floor instead of focused on one guy.
I guess my question to you is, when is OG not done role player things on the Raptors?
I would say that OG in his early years obviously did role player things, but I think OG is at the stage of his career right now where he does not view himself as a role player. And therefore, if you're moving forward, and in either way, if you want a running mate for Siakam, if you want to move towards trying to win a title, he's not good enough to be that second banana. And if you want to go the other way, if you want to go the other way and you want to go youth movement as well too, him in some ways actually hurts the development perhaps of Scotty, because they kind of handle around similar real estate. And if you want Scotty to be more aggressive scoring, I don't know in this case here having OG on the team is going to help that in this case. So for a multitude of reasons, I don't see him as a core piece, be it from his own game or even how this team's actually constructed and how he perceives himself. So that's my issue with Mr. Anunoby.
I think with OG, I'll just talk about the Scotty stuff. There isn't a player that you wouldn't like him that you wouldn't want on a guy like Scotty. He's a great cutter. He finishes everything at the rim. He can space out, and Scotty, we've seen, has struggled defending quicker players. He can take a lot of those responsibilities. He would be helping Scotty with a lot of the things that I would say are a weakness of him. And also just in the fact that I think what people confuse is like him trying to scale up his obvious usage with these isolation possessions, which I think were more of like a microcosm of like the Nick Nurse sort of system. If you grab the ball, you can do whatever you want with the ball and actually isolate. He was never in a position where he's coming off cross screens, coming off motion, playing to his actual strengths, because A, the Raptors don't have actual spacing, and B, they were one of the higher isolation teams. What you've seen, the two teams that made the finals, they weren't heavy isolation teams. They moved the ball. They allowed their players to get into spaces that actually could score. I think OG is one of one in the league. There isn't really a player that offers his skill set, and to trade that away would be catastrophic. The only way I would personally trade him would be if he wants to leave.
Okay, so let me see how good position is. He's 26 years old. I don't see OG Anunoby getting any better.
I don't think he needs to.
I think in this case, the deficiencies in his games are harmful for the team because, to your point, you're going to need in the playoffs, you're going to need guys that can make plays, and you're going to need guys that have to have some capability of scoring isolation, which is what he struggles with immensely. Because all the scheming, all the wonderful plays that maybe Darko might draw up in a regular season game, in this case against Portland, and I'm not saying Portland is the first team that came to mind, not saying anything suggesting anything, but Portland on Wednesday night in the Rose Garden, that's fine, dandy. But when it comes to playoff times, everyone can scheme out all his plays. It comes down to natural talent and ability to get shots off, which is where he struggles the most. His finishing around the hoop, it's questionable. He takes a long time to gather.
Questionable. It's just pure math. The percentage, it's high. And I would also ask you to look at his numbers in the playoffs. He scales up very well in those settings. The Philly series, he was very good.
he was very good as a
Lost the case,
third
he was
option
very
in this case a lot of times, and sometimes a fourth option, depending how other guys are going. But let's take, for example, the last time they were in the playoffs. Everyone remembers the magical game he had in Game 3, the overtime game that went wrong. And a lot of people jumped on Fred, a lot of people jumped on Pascal. Fair enough. Now, of course, Nick Nurse took his share, and I gave him some of that too. And OG played fantastic. What happened the next game when Doc and those guys decided to actually put a little scouting report on him? He wasn't seen for the rest of the series. I still have a milk carton with his face on it for the series. I can't find up to now. And that's the point I'm getting at. When you want to be a first or second option that he suggests he wants to be, you get scouted on. To quote Kevin Durant, you're a guy that gets marked. And right now, it looks great when he's playing off on the weak side and he can go and attack and close out and stuff like that. That's fine. He does that as well as anyone in the league. But once he starts getting to that rarefied air where he's a first or second option now you're starting to see, now he gets exposed in my mind of a player that can't get his own shot, struggles with his dribble, trying, even though right now he finishes around the hoop pretty well based on numbers, I take you for that. But I think once the pressure starts, being sustained and he's getting more attention, I think those numbers will drop in this case a little bit, because then it's going to be a little harder for him to get his shot off with more congestion and more attention paid to him. That's where I see him at this point.
I get that. I don't think he's a first or second option. Even the concept of that is a little murky, even, to be honest, in basketball. But the question is whether he's a core piece. He's a player that elevates your team because he's able to guard the opposing team's best player, both up and down on the court. And usually when you have a player of that defensive skill and his size, they're a poor shooter. And the fact that the Raptors, with his size, are able to offer jumbo lineups, they can even play down on their guards. They were able to survive with two small guards because OG's massive, OG and Pascal, which helped a lot. It gives you a lot of versatility in what you actually can play. And there's a reason why teams are willing to trade boatloads of picks for him, because there's no other player like him.
Yes, but I could also make the argument that there's also no one willing to actually trade an actual player for him, which I find interesting as well, too. They're willing to trade picks. A lot of teams are willing to trade picks. Players is a little harder to move off of that. Second thing I would say is, because of OG's injury history, some of his own fault, some not his own fault. Sometimes it's bad breaks, whatever the case may be. But we've seen a lot of games without OG now. And the Raptors, for example, when the last time they made the playoffs, OG really wasn't part of the run that happened in the playoffs. The last third of the season, he was in and out of the lineup for a lot of it. And then even the stretch of this past season, you could make an argument before we had Pearl, that was probably the best stretch of basketball we played before the All-Star break, or just right before the trade deadline, when Precious was actually looking the best he played all season. So he provided enough of the defensive part in this case to get by. I would say he can't shoot like OG, no two ways about that. But he provided enough athleticism on the wing to kind of help out in this case, to kind of address that issue OG had. I think you can get around OG with a couple other guys and you'll be just fine. I don't think he's a guy that could be for example, if OG were to get traded tomorrow, I think McDaniels can handle quite a bit of that load. I'm not that concerned.
No chance. Absolutely no chance.
More opportunity.
The Raptors' record is not good when he doesn't play.
Can I just chime in really quickly? If the Raptors trade OG tomorrow, which whenever this is filming, it might have happened, I think Lillard can handle the offensive load. That's all I'm going to say. Continue.
I just think that people conflate length and size with actual defensive skill. While Jaden McDaniels has some versatility, he can help on the weak side. He can defend power wings to a sense. OG can do all of those things just on a much higher plane, and losing that level with already the Raptors deficiencies offensively. If they are going to make the playoffs, their key would have to be being a top 5 defense, and having one of the best 2 or 3 wing defenders in the world would help that sentiment.
You're looking at the Raptors roster as if it was last year or the year before in this case here. I mean, I have now 2 centers that are pretty good defensive centers, which OG was forced to play center some nights against Jokic. That won't be necessary anymore. I also have probably one of the best on-ball defenders in this case coming to play with team, Mr. MVP of the FIBA. So I don't have to worry about him playing point in this case here to guard them either. So the idea in this case here that we have to, and then you have McDaniels, who in this case with more opportunity is going to be a very decent defender on the wing. Will he be OG level? I'm not expecting that.
Not
But
close.
he'll be more than respectable with who I just mentioned in this case that would defend. And Siakam in this case, now having a full season, not playing center half the time, should be kind of going back and snapping back to some version of what he usually looks like defensively. I will be okay in this case here with that group. I even mentioned Otto Porter, who's a hell of a defender on his own right. So we got guys that can handle some of that load. I'm not too concerned about that if OG were shipped out tomorrow. Like that to me, I think sometimes we get caught with the defensive part of it. You don't need an all-world defender to be a team that could be a challenge for the championship.
Can I ask a question? I think I'm just throwing this out there. Can you, in the hypothetical, OG gets traded? I'm joking people about Lillard, or maybe not. And say it's ignore what comes back. Do you feel like OG's defensive skill set could be somewhat replaced at some level, assuming that you have a combination of Precious, Otto, and McDaniels here?
No, not while the offense is also like sustainable. Even with Damian Lillard, you still need players that can play off of him. And while Precious they actually do a lot of the things that OG does defensively, it would be very tough for him to play it within those lineups. Jaden McDaniels can't do what OG does on both ends of the court. So you're just getting yourself, you're making a big trade, obviously, and you're making yourself a lot worse in a very key position on the court.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Right.
Just for Mr. McDaniels and his family for a second, in this case, to represent them for a second, I would say McDaniels is probably more dynamic with the ball than OG. I don't think that's something that I like. Am I missing something? Because I mean, he looks like a much more natural, smoother player with the ball in his hands than OG will ever look.
I've watched hundreds of games with Jalen McDaniels. He was a part of my mistress team. His job was shoot open threes only, dunk the ball when LaMelo gives you the ball.
Right. But in Philadelphia, the role was slightly different in this case here. And like we don't know what he might be capable of. No different than his brother. We don't know what you might see when you give him more opportunity. That's all I'm saying. Because even to your point, if he just shoots open jumpers, which he shows to be pretty proficient at already, that's part of the job of what OG's criteria is right now.
No, I think you're complaining. He only shoots wide open jumpers. OG can shoot contested jumpers.
I agree with that. I'm not saying
very
that.
valuable.
I agree with that, but as I said, I think you got guys in this case like Porter that can do that too. I don't think it's just like I think there's ways that you can stitch that together that it doesn't really necessarily need to have OG. And I think they've shown in the past that when OG's hurt in the last few years, they get on just fine without OG. If anything, you can make the argument Scotty actually the best guy we ever seen when OG wasn't playing that much. Because that's the thing just don't.
That's a whole other. I looked into the numbers, but we don't have to get into that today.
Like if Scotty's going to shoot 37% from three again, then sure.
I'm just saying that I think Scotty and Siakam can play well together. I think OG and Siakam can play well together. I ain't so sure Scotty and OG can play well together. That's all I have to say. Like that's where I'm coming from. And I think from that standpoint, there's another rationale why I don't know if he's actually a core piece because I think. We talked about this the other day, Kenyon, about the term portability and stuff like that. And everyone thinks OG is portable. I don't think OG is as portable as people think. I think OG has a certain style how he plays offense. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch with Darko how he wants to run offense because I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle with him and Darko because OG likes to hold the ball. He likes to kind of survey. He wants to isolate on the wing and then kind of do his little pull up from the free throw line. Or pound it in there like it's Charles Barkley 1987 and go in there and do his reverse pump fake it up for a post up. That's what he wants to do. That's almost a complete opposite of what Darko has in mind. So I'm going to find that fascinating to see how that plays out.
I just want to hear from Coach because I haven't heard from Coach in a while. So yeah.
Your question about is he a core piece? On this team, yes, I think he is, and that's because of his defense. When you have the ability to guard Donovan Mitchell one night, and we got the tape to show against Cleveland how well he does guard Donovan Mitchell, and then the next night he guards Jokic. I don't really look at someone like OG and like, I'm going to have you guarding Jokic tonight, like for a variety of reasons, or even Mitchell for that matter, because Mitchell lot shorter, quicker, and stuff like that. But he's able to do that, which is a unique skill set. Fran Fraschilla, famous guy who said Bruno was 2 years away from being 2 years away. He once said that 90 to 95% of the league is made up of role players. I think he's right. It's only like 5% that you probably consider who are superstars. In OG's case, it's almost like he is an advanced role player. And I mean that because of what he offers defensively. And of course, shooting 38% from three certainly helps in that matter. Um, in this case, like if I was to put OG on Boston right now with Tatum and Brown, let's just say, for example, I would have to consider him a core piece with them. Not he's not number one or number two, but he's like at the bottom of that core piece for a team. That's kind of how I would view him. Um, Look, it's he's a unique player. I can't call him. He's not in the league of Mikal Bridges, but he's like kind of just stepped down. That's only because of his offense. Doesn't he doesn't have the isolation skills that a Mikal Bridges has, but the defense is equatable, right? You can make an argument that maybe some seasons OG's going to be better than Bridges and stuff like that. Um, his skill set with Siakam, and let's just say Dame for a second. Dame's here. I can't see a better fit on a team with OG and Dame and Siakam. OG and Siakam work just like Beyond said. Siakam and Dame would certainly work. My question, like Beyond had said, I don't know about OG and Scotty just yet. Scotty develops. That's different. But as of now, I don't know about that fit. So to answer your question again, I think he's a core piece on this team as currently constructed right now.
So yeah, I think OG is an interesting one because defensively, I do think that it's hard. I don't think it's impossible to replace his skill set because we have the team that we do. But Trey made a good point where it's like to replace. Say you can replace 80% of his defensive skill set. Can you also replace? Can you get like an upgrade offensively? That might be hard to do with a single player. At that point, you're looking at guys that are way too expensive or way too old or they're basically out of reach. Like you're looking at like a Paul George or something like that, and that's just not really available. I guess you could maybe consider Mikal Bridges because again, like you said, they've always been kind of close, but obviously Mikal Bridges has the offensive side, OG has the defensive side. My concern comes back to the whole like is he willing to accept that he will be a third option on this specific
That's the
team?
biggest question of all of this. It's not his game. We love his. I think to a degree we love his game, but what does he want? I think Beyond had mentioned that. What does he want? Does he want
Yeah.
more? Does he want to stay the same?
I'm of the opinion that, and you mentioned your Boston point made this interesting. I'm of the opinion if you have a championship quality team, is OG even a third option on a championship level team?
Yeah, on some teams, yeah.
You're talking on offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if he is.
I think it
Right.
depends on the team. It depends on the construction. There are teams that you could. So again, in the one that you just named out or that coach named out, if you hypothetically had Lillard here and then you had, you know, obviously OG and then Siakam. I don't think he's going to be above Siakam in that situation. So I think he would be a strong third, and that might be enough to make him happy. Um, a part of this has to do with personalities and stuff like that, and that we can't really speak to, and we're not going to right now. But like, yeah, I do think that it is fair to say that like if you had the right call it a first option, and I agree with Trey that that's kind of a very complex topic in and of itself. If you had the right personality in the room, he might. Maybe this is where Darko might be really important. He might be able to be willing to see things differently.
Mm.
Because I think if it's like, well, it's Dame, fair enough, right? I think on the Raptors, I've never heard him say I want to be the first option. I think he's indicating he wants to be a second option. And so which is interesting. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that. Continue.
I was just for like when I think of core piece, I don't just think offensively as well. I have to think, what can you give me on the defensive end, like from a specialty standpoint? OG's in that category. Mikal Bridges in that category. Scottie Pippen was in that category for years and stuff like that. So it just the way that I think core piece, he would have to be in there for me, just for his ability to do that. Does the offense need to improve? Yes, it does. I hope I saw the video of him and Steph Curry doing ball handling work. Great. Keep doing it.
I'll say one other thing before Trey or Beyond kind of chime in. In terms of the offensive side, I've been saying this for a while, and people keep yelling at me. I'm gonna say it anyways. I don't care. I think that there are limitations to what OG can do offensively, mainly because it's at this age and at this stage in a career, it is very difficult to add in a way where you fix the balance, as people call it, the balance issues. I call it athletic fluidity because he is not very fluid as an athlete. That goes into his dribbling, that goes into other things. It even goes into how fast he can get a shot up. I think his shot speed is fine, by the way, but I'm just using that all of those things all into one. Even the footwork, all those things have improved, but I think that the um developing a knack for doing Pilates and stuff like that. If you do that later in life, it's a bit tougher. Again, I'm not here on this show to talk about my own stuff too much, but I did a sport that requires a lot of athletic fluidity in it and a lot of core strength. So that's where my mindset comes from, and that's why I feel like it's really difficult for him to work on those things there. But his offense might be enough. But we will see. I'll also say that people, when I say that he could potentially be the equivalent of Ron Artest, do not take that as an insult, because Ron Artest was a darn good player. Arguably, people were like, "No, he shoots better." Watch basketball, please. That's all I'm gonna say. Trey or Beyond, go for it.
The only thing I was gonna say is that I think when people think about like the concept of him wanting the ball, they assume like he wants to be Kevin Durant, take 30 shots a game. I think it's just a matter of like, obviously he's heading into a contract year, and the style of play that he's had to play on the Raptors for several years has cost him money. While it's helped the team win games, if he was in on worse teams and shot the ball more and had less impact on the floor, he probably would get paid more. The Jeremy Grant path to him getting a lot of money makes a lot of sense. He was on a really good team, had impact in the bubble. He went to another team. He shot the ball a lot more. We saw the limitations of that, but he got paid based on the fact that he's shown that there's upside to his on-ball ability, and he never would have got that chance if he was still on Denver. So I completely understand why he would want to leave the team.
Okay. I have one other question to throw at you guys, unless Beyond was going to say something.
Hmm.
Okay.
No, I'll just say if it was wrong on our test, I wouldn't have this debate right now.
True. Ron Artest was a very good player, people. This is my question. Other than the Raptors, and other than our fantasy 2K style Dame's here tomorrow kind of a thing, and then you have the three people and you have whatever, and you make whatever moves you have to do. Is there other moves? Because right now in the Raptors offense, he's probably again, I don't, because like I don't see Scottie as like a first option, but he might be a primary initiator, or at least they'll try it out. But are there other teams that he could be a quote unquote third option and then a second option, other than the Raptors? I'm just curious because I do have an idea, but I'll let you guys go for it.
I think the first one that comes to mind is obviously like the Wizards. So that would be taking the Jeremy Grant path, going on a team where you're able to shoot the ball a lot, and they actually probably would win a lot more games if he was on the team. Also defensively, second option, I think that's like where his skill set would sort of plateau. I don't think he has the ability to create his own shot well enough to warrant that usage. The ideal role for him is playing off of somebody else, creating advantages, using his athletic ability and strength creation to then score off of those secondary actions. So in a number two option, he would need a very, very strong first first option would probably like a Giannis, where he's attacking closeouts all the time because four people are in the paint when Giannis drives.
I can't really think of any team he could be a second option. No, I don't think so. I think third option, yeah. I think Washington, as I mentioned before. I think my beloved Mavericks. I think he would be a good fit as a third option.
Yep.
I think maybe I don't even know that's one's dicey. Perhaps in the right scenario, Indiana, maybe. Yeah, that might be a third option there, perhaps. Some nights he might be squeezed out a second one, maybe depending on the development of Mather. And at that point, I think it starts getting really thin. At that point, I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other place where he might be a third option. Maybe Detroit.
Okay, I'm gonna put out a couple team names, and you could tell me if you think that it would work as at least a third option. The Knicks.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
No,
Damn.
I would say yeah. I'd want him to have the ball more than RJ, probably.
Yeah, I also yeah. So well, hey, we have an RJ fan, remember? I think if RJ was still on the team, if that happened, then fair enough. But I think otherwise, no. I think on the Sixers, he could be if you took out Tobias Harris. Oh wait, never mind. They have Maxi. I keep forgetting about
Maxey,
Maxi.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah, that's a no.
right. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm forgetting about someone. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Never mind. The Kings is my question.
Third, no.
Wow.
I'd
Okay.
probably
some
want.
nights maybe.
Yeah, some nights like he would play with the starters a lot, but you'd want Malik Monk to shoot the ball more.
I forgot about Monk. I didn't even think about Harrison
I
Barnes.
I was thinking Monk would be more with the
I
second
was thinking
unit.
Keegan Murray. He'd be like third option
Yeah.
some nights. Yeah,
I assume in this scenario someone's leaving in this case here, so I
Yes.
guess
Yeah.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um. Uh. The Lakers.
No,
Okay.
you don't
Well,
want Austin Reeves to have the ball more.
that's
no.
rough.
Austin Reeves is good.
He is
yeah.
good.
No, I don't think I could say.
No.
Even D'Angelo
Third
Russell.
Yeah, exactly. If Russell wasn't there, maybe, but I don't think he's a better offensive player at this point than Austin Reeves.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's really the gambit of teams that I can really think of that he could potentially be at top three. I can't think of top two. I think, like you said, maybe the Wizards are one.
I mean, the other
The
possibility is Detroit, maybe, because I mean, depending on like Detroit, like right now, Ivy you don't know about right now, so Detroit's probably the other one.
Look
yes,
at the teams that you guys are saying:
I know.
the Wizards, Detroit, Indiana, maybe Dallas. Like I don't know if I can say Dallas is the top 6 team in the West right now. I can't say that. Like we're talking about these play-in teams or terrible teams right now. That's what we're not saying the Clippers, we're not saying Philly or the Bucks or the Knicks or Phoenix or like we're not saying these potentially top 5 teams. It's hard to put them in that. We're saying these fringe teams.
This is the reason why I have no problem moving him, because for this very reason. Because
interesting.
not only now you want to pay him as if he's a top 2 or 3 player, which he's not in this case on most championship level teams. You're also now in this case here, we from a role that you're expecting for. We're looking at, as you said before, we're looking at middling teams to bottom feeders for the most part. That you're looking for him to be a big offensive cog into. So that's the reason why I still go back. It's like, no, we can find our ways to patch that up, or depending on who you get for him, that can actually fill a legitimate role as a number 2 guy or a number 3 guy. That to me, like that, that's the reason why I just keep coming back. Is like, what, if he's on a top team, at best he's a 4th option, most likely a 5th on some really good ones.
In a Barnes situation, it would be interesting to see what would happen because if it's just him and Barnes, I have my concerns personally, long term, from an offensive standpoint. from like an immediate standpoint, and I don't think that that's the direction that the Raptors are going. But if they did do that direction, if they did pull that trigger, I feel like you end up. I know people say it's a sunk cost. I get it, but it's still a waste because it's like if you get your pick this year and say you have assessed internally that next year's a better draft, then you've missed out on that draft next year. And then if you've given up a good pick this year, but you don't get the right assets back, and say they're middling assets at best, then you've really missed out on an opportunity. The other thing is that I worry that in some of the whatever's coming back cases, like for example, if I go back and it was like hypothetically, say it was Scoot and Simons for Pascal. That ship has sailed now, but say that that was still on the table. I have a hard time saying and seeing if, like, because Scoot's going to be higher up on the pecking order than OG. Let's be honest. In that hypothetical scenario, it's just
Yeah.
Simons, you could argue, but I would say that he would probably be higher up on the pecking order than OG.
This much, man. If he got issues with Gary Trent getting shots, he ain't seen nothing yet. So you see Simons in town.
That too. And then the other thing is that you still have Scotty, who you're, supposedly building the team around. He would have so it's like now he's been pushed down. So in those scenarios, this is the tough thing that I've always struggled with. I don't know if I could see him being happy. Even if you get AJ Griffin, if you get Kobe Buffkin, one of those two might have a higher role than OG. I would hope, because if we're all saying that we're worried about OG's offensive ability, and that's the main thing in him accepting his role on that, then you would hope that whoever you're trading would have that juice to take that step forward. Otherwise, what are you doing trading Pascal in the first place? So at least even if it's not in the short term, in the long term. So that would be just that's my main concern. Also, I think, as Beyond so bluntly put it the other day, it was like, it's like a girl telling you that I'm not interested, and you keep pursuing her. It's time to learn and listen what the person wants. I think he said kind of in, maybe, not exactly, but that he may not necessarily be interested in what the Raptors are selling.
Right. And I think the Brian Windhorst information came out recently is just interesting because I got fed by somebody.
And that was found on Raptors Republic.
Let me ask one question here for the panel in this case. Let me see. What's the threshold number in this case that you would be willing to pay OG in this case here? So more, if it goes over this number, you're not willing to pay him. So let's say, so if it's under 35, I'm open to paying him. That's my number.
That's your number? Okay.
35 is my number.
That's your.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say 35 is the line.
Okay.
Yeah. Grant's getting 32, I think. I think OG, bit younger, better defender. I'd give 35.
I'm cool.
I'll go. I think he will get 35. I would not pay him 35. I would push for, and I'm guessing we're talking about average annual.
Yeah.
I would push for 33 and give like here's some incentives or whatever. But that's what I would push for. I would push for 33.
I agree with you. I just know how Masai seems to think in this case here that I wouldn't be surprised he gets 35, but I agree with you. Like I want him close to 30, to be honest with you. But what the market's saying, if Grant's getting 32 or 33, he can't get lower than that. No. Listen, as much as I've been debating the other side, OG, he's a better player than Grant. I'm not saying, okay, that's facts. So for him to get 32 is like, especially with how the CBA is going now, and of course with this TV deal kicking in, that he's definitely gonna get more. I think he's gonna get more than 35, honestly.
It's possible. It's very possible that he does. I think that the Indiana Pacers already have the ability to clear up to $36 million in cap space. So already, y'all need to up your game.
I'm gonna put it on the table right now, man. I'm gonna say it right now. Off season for now. Do not be surprised if Ben Mathurin is a Toronto Raptor. Okay.
I mean, it would be nice. I don't know if that necessarily happens, But I understand where you're coming from, because you're basically saying if OG's there again in terms of pecking order,
Yeah.
how do you figure that out?
Well, here my thing is how Indiana has already sent signals that they're good and they're looking for a nice wing in this case here, but they're willing to wait for the offseason. Let's face it, all these guys talk. I suspect there's some deals in place already. I would not be surprised if Indiana has something of maybe a soft handshake with the OG camp. I would not be surprised.
Oh, from that standpoint, yeah, I think they know that there's going to be a spot for him if he wants it.
Right. And then to add in the fact that there's been like lukewarm reaction to Mather in the offseason of how his game's developed, there's something brewing. And now you hear the Buddy Hield talk. Stuff is a brewing. That's all I got to say.
The Buddy Hield thing is very interesting because that just came out of nowhere. And, I will also say that I like the fact that they are moving quickly on negotiations. So that's all I'll say, is that like it's nice to kind of close the chapter on, okay, well, we didn't reach something, we know what our number is, we know what this number is, we're not going to meet, all right, time to, like, it's like I just remember right after GTJ opted in, hearing there was going to be some sort of something, and it seemed imminent, and then there's nothing, and literally I haven't heard a single thing since. It's very strange. Trey, before we get to a close with this, and before you plug your stuff, one last question, and this has to do with over-unders. So do you think that the Raptors, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 36.
36?
Yes. So would you punch the over on 36? And then I'll ask a follow-up question. As presently constructed, I should say. Yeah, I
would say yes, but barely. I think like somewhere between 37 to 39 is probably where they end up.
Okay, so if the line was set at 40, you would not punch the over.
No.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for you guys, folks. What I will say is that, Trey, where can people find you aside from in the description down below? People, please comment and all that good stuff. But yeah, where can people find you, and what are you working on?
Well, I'm a part of a podcast group called Pull Up Trey Podcast with my lovely friend Samson Folk. Our podcast will be returning next month. We have some cool stuff that we've been thinking about doing that we want to expand and do and show what we can do. But nothing to plug really for myself. Just follow Raptors Republic, follow the great writers there, and support independent media.
Have you been training? Are you going to beat Samson in this next upcoming race one day?
We just did Tough Mudder, so we've been training.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to it. So people also stay tuned for that as well. I'm going to link those things down in the description down below. Of course, for all things in terms of the general media landscape, I think that Raptors Republic is really, really great. One of the only, if not, I think the only official independent media that exists within our media landscape. So definitely I always love to share the love there. And I think it's really important. Other than that, is there anything that you're looking for? Wait, are you going to the presser?
No, I'm not going to the
presser. Fair enough. I didn't know if you were, I was going to say, are you looking forward to ice cream or something like that? It's getting a little late for that in terms of the year. So, but is there anything that you are looking forward to seeing in preseason?
I think it's just like, I'm really interested, like seeing what the Raptors are going to do to manifest separation and spacing with this team, because there is no other team that is built like them. So it's really going to be a testament to Darko's creativity and like vision for basketball. If he's able to create an offense that looks average, he is doing an amazing job, and we have the right coach.
He is coach of the year.
Yes. Yeah, because you know that the defense is going to be there, right? So it's like it's really just the other side. I think that Darko could be the biggest X factor, and I'm not trying to hype him up or anything. I'm just saying it could be the biggest X factor, because if he figures that out, and it's something that people haven't thought of, kudos to
Yeah,
him. Like,
tips off. And I hope they defensively, like the scheme, I hope they go to more traditional drop
yeah,
instead of
because I mean, you
the
don't have to wear guys down to like the nubs, right?
yeah,
Like that's just it's almost malpractice at this point.
yeah.
Final question. Sorry, these are popping up in my mind. Um, how many games does Joel Embiid play based on Nick Nurse's comments?
82.
He's gonna be out on a
Please let me get the
stretcher going
under,
like
please.
this.
Please let me get the under, please. If that's the number, man, I'm heading out right now to the casino right now, man. I'm putting some money on that right now.
We need to know the over under on that, Vegas, please. I know
If he
if it's
plays
not
82 games, he'll be retired by the end of the year.
another MVP season loading and then retirement. With that being said, people, it's been fun. It's been Basketball Rewind. We're getting back into Raptors, but also we're going to cover the rest of the league. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about East Conference and Western Conference over unders. I think the Western Conference is almost more interesting because I have no idea. After I think the Denver Nuggets, it could go a lot of different ways, people. So with that being said, stay tuned and have fun. And hopefully you stay tuned to both Raptors Republic as well as Basketball Rewind for all of your basketball news. Peace.